Sports YouTuber and passionate New York Ranger fan Adam Jaxson, aka 5PointsVids, is back on the show. We're talking Peter Laviolette, the Rangers offseason, Patrick Kane, and a whole bunch of other stuff on today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers.
You're Locked On the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 895 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick, joined by my good friend Adam Jaxson, aka 5PointsVids. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Birddogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL or enter promo code LockedOnNHL for a free water bottle with any order. You won't want to take off your Bird Dogs, we promise you. And so, we're back. First of all, man, welcome back to the show. It's been way too long. I definitely miss doing this. We always have a lot of fun here. And, might as well just dive right into it. I figure, obviously, the biggest news of the Ranger offseason here, obviously, they decide to, let go of Gerard Gallant, and now Peter Laviolette, noted Ranger enemy over the years, coaching the Caps and the Flyers, now going to be our boss bench. How do you feel, first of all, about the dismissal of Gallant and the choice to go with Peter Laviolette as his replacement?
The impermanence of the NHL, especially when it comes to coaching, has reared its ugly head. You don't see guys coaching for, not even 4 or 5 years in the league. And when you saw a situation, 2019, I think, with the Blues, where they fired their coach late in the season, Berube takes over, they win the cup. And you kind of see this theme now where you can add a coach late. Hell, you can fire him mid-season, add a different bench boss, someone that's just going to do something different with these guys. It's become very much like the NBA where it's not about tactics and it's not about structure, or it's about, massaging these players' egos or just getting them to mesh correctly with each other. And especially because there's so many trade deadline moves and rosters, also their composition changes as you get into the playoffs in April. So I knew that Gallant would eventually be let go. I liked him. He was tough. He definitely got us very far. We were 2 wins away from the Cup finals, but I was not surprised to see him go. And then Laviolette, to comment on that, I saw a lot of Rangers fans were not happy with that. There was a lot of criticism of him. The guy wins. Okay, let's just be frank about that. Everywhere he's gone, every stop that he's been, you look at Nashville, you look at Washington, you look even at Philly, like the guy wins. Like he just gets it done. I think he's good for this team. He's good for the chemistry of this team. And we've got a lot of talent that needs to develop under him. Me, I don't live up where you guys do. I live in the DC area, and I used to hear him a lot talk on the local radio shows. He's an articulate, knowledgeable coach. I think when you see us winning and you see how he delivers and how he calmly is behind the bench, if you know anything about him, he's going to be a good presence, and he can handle New York for sure. I think he can handle the media. This is not his first rodeo.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I mean, with Gallant, I don't know how you felt about this, but to me, it felt like he pretty much had to win the Stanley Cup to save his job. Am I exaggerating a little bit there? Maybe making it to the finals would have gotten it done, but it just felt like, him and Drury were starting to clash, and something happened where there was a disconnect between him and the players this past season, which, the first year, they looked like they were ready to run through a wall for him. So just any thoughts on that?
Well, I think the way the season ended was really disappointing, especially when they went out and got all the parts that you thought we would need to make a deep run. And then all of a sudden, it was like a month before the season ended. We were scoring ridiculous amounts of goals. Like Kaner and Tarasenko and Panarin started playing, and Zibanejad was playing out of his mind. And then as we got closer to the playoffs, things just started to fall apart. And I don't know I don't know if Gallant forgot how to coach. I just don't think that was the problem. It's just when you have a first round exit, when the goal was to exceed what we did last year, which was get all the way to the conference finals. I think maybe at least a run to the finals would have saved his job, because then he could say, hey, I'm one more step away. But really going out in the first round was about the worst thing that could happen to Gallant. and he was already being kind of criticized for how things were happening through the season. Like, yeah, there's something was off. Headed into the playoffs, it just seemed odd. But I don't think that was really his fault. Like that, everyone got banged up. Kaner didn't look like himself towards the playoffs. Like he was pretty much absent. Like Panarin wasn't as dominant in the playoffs either. Like I don't know if it was what New Jersey did or how bad we were, but it was ugly to watch that happen.
Yeah, it was a really weird series too, because like, yeah, it went 7 games and, you've got this rivalry matchup, Rangers, Devils, and rah. But, when you look at that series, like almost every game was kind of a blowout except for game 3, which went into overtime. So that was just kind of strange in and of itself. But yeah, man, I mean, just we'll get the bad stuff out of the way first here. Like just your thoughts watching everything fall apart in that series. I mean, what are you thinking as it's happening in real time? Because after 2 games, a couple of 5-1 wins on the road and we're feeling good, Stanley Cup and this, that, and the other thing. But, that series is also a reminder that, no NHL Stanley Cup playoff series is ever really over until somebody wins 4 games. And as Ranger fans, we've been on both sides of that. And this is just kind of the latest example. And unfortunately, we're on the wrong side of it.
Yeah, I think, I've kind of tried to erase it from my memory because we went up like 2-0. I was just like, oh, we're done. This is done. They can't hang with us. They came in banged up, and they came back. And if we would have just won that 7th game, we would have been fine. But like something happened, like even midway through the series, that just kind of happened like with the season. Like it was just like a microcosm of our entire season where we were going good. It looked like we were unstoppable, and then something would flip with these guys, and then all the flaws. Like the one thing I do remember very clearly is Miller, Keandre. I love him as a player. He was bad. I mean, I want to say bad, but like something was off with him. He wasn't making the plays that he normally was making during, especially those last 5 games. Like I was like, what is up with Miller? I would tweet about this. I was like, what's going on with Miller? Because you can't, especially with it as I wouldn't say weak, as lacking of depth as our blue line had. Like, we don't have many skilled blue line players. And if Miller's off, the whole thing, it set the whole thing back. And like, I was like, man, like, and I love Keandre Miller. Like, I love him to death. When he is on top of his game, he is unstoppable. But in that series towards the end, he was not. Something was off. And I don't know if they ever addressed it or if he was just, he was banged up, but it was hard to watch.
I'm a big Miller fan too, but it does feel like he goes through those funks from time to time, I guess you could say. I thought like the beginning of this past season, and I said as much on my show here, him and Trouba got off to just a miserable start. I mean, and Trouba was playing through some injuries, but every time they were on the ice, it felt like we were pinned back in our own zone, and they just seemed slow to react to things. But to kind of bring it around, full circle here, Keandre Miller, the way the Rangers have drafted, from time to time, especially in the first round, I think we got to feel pretty good about him, right? He's one of the homegrown success stories, along with Kreider and a couple other guys that they've taken in the first round. But then you also get your Vitaly Kravtsovs and your Elias Anderson. So overall, I'm hoping Miller is here. I mean, for the long haul. Are you feeling the same way?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I said, like I'm not being even really critical of him, other than like, yeah, something was off. Like, and I hope that he's going to be a blue liner hopefully for the long haul. I mean, we've got some cap challenges. We got to get guys in that we need. We got to do something with Kakko. We got to decide what we're going to do with Lafreniere. Chytil, I think we've taken care of. Like, I'm happy with his development. Like, I've been a Chytil fan since he's stepped on the ice, and I'm just loving what I see from him. Like, he's quickly becoming like one of my favorite forwards / centers on the team. So there's a lot to look forward to, but yeah, Miller's got to be here. Like, there's no way we can just let him go as a piece of this team.
He's a pillar for sure. But you mentioned Chytil there. I was going to ask you about some of the kids a little bit later, but with Chytil, let me ask you this: do you want to see him on the Panarin line next year, or are you good with Trocheck still being there and you leave Chytil on the third line? I'm still trying to figure this out and kind of configure the lines and what's going to be best. But man, what are your thoughts on that? Any chance of Chytil being there with Panarin?
It's been tough to find someone just to mesh with Panarin, right? Like, he's so dominant and he demands so much attention from the opposition. But he's also a guy that feeds the puck to other people. He likes to get those assists. He likes to just be a facilitator. So I don't really know. Like, I'm just seeing, I want to see what Laviolette does. And it doesn't matter to me as long as it works. But yeah, I think Chytil could go up there. I love the kid line, honestly. But that might be the selfish love affair that I had with them from 2 years ago in that playoff run where the kids just came all together, and you're just like, wow, if we're going to be a 3-line team and that's the third line, like I thought cup or bust, right? You're thinking that, and then but they did have trouble last year, really meshing, and even as the kids together, but. Yeah, maybe Chytil is, gosh, if he's a first line center, then I mean, give him a shot. Like, but I don't know. Like, the other thing that we haven't really had is just an excellent face-off guy, like a guy that's always going to win the draw. Like Trocheck's not that guy. Chytil's not necessarily that guy. Barclay Goudreau's not. I mean, he's okay, but like we haven't really had a guy like a Crosby or a McDavid who's just going to win that draw like every time. But that's also a rare commodity in the NHL, anyways.
Yeah, I'm big on face-offs, man. That's part of the reason why I lean a little bit more toward Trocheck rather than Chytil with Panarin, just because like. Chytil's, I mean, look, I like him too, and I'm glad that they got him signed long-term, but not exactly a strong face-off guy, to put it very mildly. And Trocheck, I don't know his exact percentage, but he definitely won more than half this past season. I don't know, man. I just don't know if Panarin's on the ice. It's like, man, do we really want to like concede face-offs left and right, especially like in the offensive zone? So I don't know. It's an interesting food for thought for sure.
Especially like, I mean, okay, if you put Chytil on the Panarin line, like how does that change the power play, right? Like how and a face-off wins are so vital on a power play. And then if you got Chytil taking draw, I would think maybe he would be the second unit captain or maybe a wing on that. Yeah. Obviously you want Trocheck or Zibanejad out there, but like that's a big role. If you're going to elevate him to the Panarin line, you would think that naturally he would go up on the power play too. But that's not necessarily true. But it's kind of a logical leap to put those two together. But again, winning faceoffs on the power play is pretty much everything, right? I mean, you got to win that draw.
That's how they beat the Penguins a couple of years ago. That was an ozone faceoff win, and if I remember correctly, and then obviously Panarin scored. But yeah, man, want to keep everything rolling in just a second here. Want to ask you a little bit about Patrick Kane, but we do have to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Birddogs. Birddogs make you look good. Birddogs stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. Birddog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but they fit way better. They fit way better than regular shorts that are made of a stiff, restricting cotton. Birddogs fix this issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki but stretches, so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice any movement. Birddogs uses anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. Birddogs are functional for any occasion. Go to birddogs.com/lockedonxxx or enter promo code LOCKEDONXXX at checkout for a free Birddogs water bottle with your order. That's birddogs.com/lockedonxxx for a free water bottle at checkout. You won't want to take off your Birddogs. We promise you.
I might have to check those out. I hear
they're not bad, man. They sent us a couple free samples. I should be wearing them right now, but they're actually down here in the man cave somewhere. But yeah, they're not bad at all. I do recommend them.
I'll have to check them out.
Absolutely. But I figure, we'll keep everything rolling here. And one of the biggest ongoing storylines, I guess it's sort of an ongoing storyline, is Patrick Kane and what's going to happen with him. And obviously he comes to the Rangers last year. They do all sorts of salary cap gymnastics to make it happen. They squeeze him in with about 8 cents of salary cap space left. And mixed results, flashes of vintage Showtime Patrick Kane, but also some games where, he was a little bit shaky out there. Just your thoughts on what Kane did last year. And I don't know how you even make it work with the salary cap, but any thoughts on potentially bringing him back whenever he decides he's ready to sign?
Gosh, so I was able to go up to MSG in March, and I think he had just been acquired in maybe a week or two. And being a Ranger fan and seeing Patty Kane out there, just, I was awestruck to see him out there in Ranger blue. And it's just like, yeah, you think about his pedigree, you think he's won, multiple cups, and he was bringing that attitude, and you could tell that he just wanted to be a Ranger and he loved being out there. And in the game that I saw, like, he did really well. Like, and then, it's like, as the season wore on, like, he started to show why, he was kind of expendable in Chicago and why they wanted to get value out of him. The thing is like, how much more effectiveness does he have? I forget exactly how old he is. I think he's early to mid 30s, something around there.
He's 35 now, or like he's about to turn 35, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So he could be a skill player on this team, but he can't be, or a role player, but he can't be a pivotal, or a building block player, especially for an 82 game season. He was perfect as a trade deadline acquisition. Also with him and Tarasenko, you're just like, oh, these are the two parts that we need. These are the last two pieces of the puzzle. And you don't even get past the first round. Like we said, it's like, yes, do we want him? Of course. You're never going to turn down Patrick Kane services, but my question back to you would be like, okay, if you forego that cap hit, like, what do you spend it on? What's out there that's going to be as good as Patrick Kane that we need for this roster?
Yeah, that's the thing. They don't really have any cap space. So for him to come back, he'd have to take some kind of a hometown discount, which, I say hometown, he's been here for a couple of months, but it's a situation where, it kind of is similar to what happened last year when they were first acquiring him. Because, I remember right away, he was very, very divisive amongst the fan base. And, a lot of fans really wanted him here. A lot of people really didn't. But I do feel like it's one of those situations where it's like, all right, well, all they had to give up was a 2nd round draft pick and a 4th round draft pick. And, like, you can't tell me that Patrick Kane does not make this team at least a little bit better. He took Jake Lecision's roster spot. So I don't think too many people were banging their fists on the table and, oh man, we want Lecision in the lineup. But it's an interesting situation. It's one of those things where, if he's willing to come back for cheap and they can squeeze him in under the salary cap again, it would be hard to say no to that because, again, he is getting older. He does have the hip issue. But, you look at the forwards right now, I would say the 12th forward on the team right now is probably Tyler Pitlick. And it's like, nothing against him. He's journeyed around the NHL and he is a scrappy player and everything. But it's like, who do you want in the lineup, like in a game 7, like Tyler Pitlick or Patrick Kane, So for all those reasons, yeah, man, I think if Kane wants to come back and it makes sense from a money perspective, I think I would probably have to do it too. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, like, I'm not going to turn him down. Like, but you go out and you add like Blake Wheeler, which was like kind of,
we're feeling it.
Like, I don't know if he fits what we do. Like, you get rid of Reeves, right? Because you needed a guy to knock people around, and now Reeves is gone, which I thought when he left, it really changed kind of the chemistry of the team. Like, he had lost his effectiveness. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, like, he was a big part of the identity of the team, and then he's gone. And you just kind of lost that bite. But like, is that what Blake Wheeler is supposed to do? Like, just be a big body forward and shove people around? No, I don't think that's his job. He's also like slow. He's always been slow. So like, it's just interesting that they would bring him in. It was just like, all right, you're available, we'll bring you in. And I don't know how effective he's gonna be. That. I know I might be jumping ahead here, but like, I was just kind of shocked that that's who they were after, or who who Drury wanted to bring in. It's interesting for me.
I kind of liked it, to be honest, because same thing with Kane. Like, the price was right. Like, the fact that you can get Blake Wheeler at $800K, it's only $25K over the league minimum. You have precious little cap space to work with. You're thin at right wing, so it was kind of just like, all right, well. And, even playing for a mediocre Jets team last year, I think he had like 55 points or something like that. So, he can still get it done a little bit. I don't know that I would want him on the same line as Panarin, though. I know a lot of people kind of have him penciled in there because they're both kind of facilitators and pass-first guys. And, Trocheck's out there to be kind of the gritty guy. And it's like, all right, well, who's going to shoot on this line, So Again, there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle, and I mean, who knows, man? Maybe we'll do another episode where we try to figure out these line combinations or something. But yeah, I don't know. For the price, I'm like, all right, 1 year, Blake Wheeler, spot we're thin at. Let's give it a shot and just see what happens. And if it doesn't work, I mean, it's not like there was really anybody better based on the amount of cap space that the Rangers had.
Yeah. I mean, he obviously fills a need and he's there, but I was just like, oh, it wasn't like an inspiring move. But how many offseason moves? Most of the inspiring moves come at the trade deadline when something's available. Other than when we added Panarin, but I also didn't mind the Bonino acquisition. I thought that was solid. He's gonna definitely help shore up some issues with depth, and I'm fine with that too. Like. We kind of got extra centers though. You got Barkley down there. You got Chytil. You got Trocheck, and then you got Bonino. It's like all right. We went from like not having anyone to like all right. Now we got all these centers.
You got a log jam now. But with Bonino, man, he's won a couple of Stanley Cups and part of the old HBK line there with the Penguins.
Right.
And again, it's one of those things where I think he's making the league minimum or just a shade above it. And, they just want him to come in, center the fourth line, win a faceoff when you need him to, kill some penalties. I think that's a solid pickup. Of all the offseason pickups, was he your favorite? I'm kind of sensing that maybe.
Yeah, because anytime you can shore up the penalty kill, because that's so important. Like you got to get, because someone's gonna do something dumb. Like you can't always count on just. Someone's gonna clutch and grab. Trouba's gonna grab somebody. Something bad is someone's gonna commit a penalty, and you definitely have to kill off those minutes. And I thought we did pretty good, last year in terms of penalty kill. And I thought special teams were really good last year. It's just kind of wasn't there in the playoffs though. It's like, well, I mean, the first two games we were just absolutely icing. Like we were crushing, and then the last. 5 games. It's like, where did all that magic go? Like, so hard to watch.
It's hard to put your finger on it, and especially like I think the ones that really stick out are games 5 and 7 because I think they were both shutouts. I know for sure that game 7 was, and just felt like complete no shows. And it's just like, man, how is this like your best effort when like literally the entire season is on the line? And after they played well in game 6 to force game 7, and they come out and lay an egg, and it's like. Why did you even do all that work in game 6 if this was going to be game 7?
It kind of seemed like they spent everything in game 6 to get to that game 7. And they came out so flat. And like, where was Kreider? Like, oh man, like I don't know. Like it was tough to watch. Like, it's just, and I love Kreider. Kreider is probably my favorite Ranger of all time. Like I just love Kreider to death. So I've just watched him grow. I've seen him since he was an 18-year-old kid out there coming straight from Boston College. Like he makes this team just lovable. And but yeah, it was it's tough when he puts up monster seasons, and he had a decent playoffs, but we just didn't get far enough. That was a problem, and we were 1 game away. Like who knows what happens? We win that game 7, they show up. I think we would have got Carolina after that, and we handled them. But all crazy things happened after that. Like the Lightning went out. Like it all ended up with this. And then all of a sudden the Panthers are in the finals. Like, how did this happen? Like, it was insane, and that also, but that's also kind of bothersome because that could have been us. We could have been the team that got hot. It certainly wasn't a personnel equation. Like, Panthers ended up playing better than anyone else down the stretch, but they didn't have the best roster. I'll tell you that. And the fact that Boston had the season that they did, which if there's any solace to what happened to us, is to kind of look over at what happened to the Bruins and say, it happened to you two guys.
That was unreal, man. The way, they're up 3-1. You think they're just going to cruise, and they lose game 5 in overtime. They lose game 6, and then game 7, the Panthers are down by a goal with 45 seconds left, and they tie it.
Empty netter. Like the season was over. It was done. It was finished. Like, and that's, I guess it happens a lot. I wouldn't say a lot, but like when you pull the goalie, like you're in trouble. And they were just able to possess the puck, and then they finally got it in and scored, and they go on and win it in OT. Like insane, just insane. Like Boston had so many chances to just lock that up, to have it be done, and they couldn't do it, and it just cost them.
If I remember correctly, I think at the end of Game 5, Marchand had a breakaway with the game tied at the end of regulation, and Bobrovsky made the save, and then that forced in overtime. But if he scores there, it's series over, and that just goes to show how crazy the Stanley Cup playoffs really are and how unpredictable they really are. But actually, if we could change gears real quick, I did want to ask you, because you mentioned Jacob Trouba there, and I remember we used to have you on this show in the past, and we were trying to figure out, and everybody that likes the Rangers was trying to figure out, okay, who's going to be the next captain? And of course, they go with Jacob Trouba this past year. I mean, for you, was he the guy? Were you on board with that pick? Did you think it was going to be him? Just any thoughts on Jacob Trouba wearing the C there?
I thought about it. Like at first, I was like,
I was a Kreider guy, but
but I don't think Kreider wants it. Like, I don't think that he's as effective as the captain, because like he's more of the guy. He's like the guy everyone likes. And he still wants to be that guy. And I think Trouba wants to be the guy. It's like, hey, you might not like me, but I want to get the best out of you. And that's who you need to be your captain, right? And that's the guy who you need to, get in to get other players to be like, hey, you need to be on board. So eventually, as I saw how he executed as captain, I'm like, all right, yeah, this guy's the guy. Like, he's wearing the C, and he's also locked up for a long time. I mean, he's going to be a Ranger probably till the end of his career, hopefully. Because and like it just made sense. Like I get that Kreider is going to be here, of course, but and I wouldn't have minded if it was Kreider, but like Trouba, no, I don't see any deficiencies there with him as the captain. In fact, as the season wore on, I was like, yeah, that's our guy. He's going to lead this team.
Yeah, I think so too. And the thing, it kind of piggyback off of what you said, he's also very accountable after games. He doesn't pull any punches when talking to the media. We had that situation last year. Remember when they were just playing like garbage early in the season? They're getting killed by like the Blackhawks or somebody, and he's leaving the ice and he takes his helmet off and just fires it against the boards. And like some people were criticizing him for that. I'm like, dude, like this guy is like called out his team publicly. They've done the players only meeting thing. Glantz called them out a couple of times. What else is there left to do other than, something like that? So I loved when he did that. And lo and behold, clearly, it struck a nerve in a good way, because they went on a nice winning streak after that. I think they won like 5 or 6 in a row after that happened.
Yeah, and that's what a leader does. It might not be in a perceptive way of what people think a leader should do, but leaders go out and get results. And I thought that Trouba did a great job of leading. And of course, he's got Schneider over there that he's got to grow and develop as a talent. And you want a veteran guy like Trouba to be around. Schneider's still a kid. Like, it's crazy that he's so young, but it's so good and so young. And Miller too. Miller, they're about the same age. They're kids, and you need a veteran like Trouba to be around them and show them how it's done. And of course, Foxy's just going to be Foxy. Like, I mean, how did we go 28 minutes without talking about Foxy? Like,
I know, right?
He's just,
it's so, granted, that's it.
Yeah, I know. He's so good. And he's so fun to watch. I know I'm switching gears a little bit, but
it's cool,
I'm just thinking about Adam Fox and how privileged we are to have him as a member of our blue line. Like, it's incredible.
I know you're a gamer, so I mean, should he have gotten the cover this year? They went with Cale Makar. I mean, I talked about that a little bit. I mean, you can't go wrong either way, but I wanted to see our guy on there.
The thing about Foxy is, like, he's not sexy, right? Like, he just does everything great. And that's not as marketable as Cale Makar, who does these crazy moves and has this wicked wrister that just zips past. Like Makar is like, he's all these things, and Fox is a lot of those things, but he's not as, marketable as some other players, because he's just so solid and so smooth. It's amazing to watch him. And if you're a Rangers fan, like, you love him, but I don't know if you're just a general hockey fan, like, you should appreciate what Adam Fox does, but you probably hate him if he's not on your team, because you're just like, man, that guy broke up another play. Man, that guy scored on us again. Man, that guy did that thing against us. Like, if he's not on your team, you're like, oh God, how does he do it to us every time?
He's the total package. And I mean, like, a lot of people, And, somewhat rightfully so with defensemen, they'll kind of fixate on the points and all the offense this guy's producing. And there's kind of an ongoing joke now that, the Norris just goes to whichever defenseman has the most points. But man, he's just as good in his own end defensively as he is offensively. I've been saying, man, I feel like he defends the 2-on-1 about as well as any defenseman in hockey. It's amazing how many times he'll face a 2-on-1 and he'll just straight up steal the puck from somebody. He won't just take away the pass or break something up. No, he'll just take away the puck and then skate away with it. It's pretty wild to watch.
Yeah, there's so many times where he's forced turnovers and you're just like, that's our guy. And then the turnover ends up in a goal or something. And you're just like, yeah, that's what he does. He's just so smooth with his stick. He's a guy that rarely ever makes a mistake. And just like you're saying, on 2-on-1, he's like, all right, which guy do I got? I can handle either one because he's just so quick and he can react so well. It's such a pleasure to watch him play hockey. We're spoiled by him.
Absolutely, 100%. From Brian Leach to Adam Fox.
Oh, yeah.
Bunch of years in between, but we got there, and some good defensemen in between as well. But man, I mean, you talk about just two dynamic blue liners. So I also there's this thing I do. I do an episode every once in a while where I'll just kind of ask the listeners of the show, a special moment in Ranger history. Where were you? Who were you with? How did you react when such and such happened? And one that I did last offseason was the Panarin Game 7 goal. And I got some great stories, but I actually know where you were because you and your urinating tree, you guys were streaming the game. And a little surprise here. I got a 30-second clip. If you don't mind, we'll play this and we'll let everybody see your reaction to this happening, this goal being scored by Artemi Panarin. So here we go, a 30-second clip. And for anybody listening on audio, you can just kind of listen along. It's just as good. Here we go.
Moves back to Fox. Fox at the point. Holds. Moves back to his right to Panarin. Panarin tries the quick wrist shot, blocked off. It's a goal! Score! They win! They do it! You blew a 3-1 lead! The Rangers win! The Rangers win! Yeah, baby! What's up? Whoa! Whoa!
Oh my God, that's too funny. So, yeah, man. First of all, props to you guys for even being able to do that because honestly, watching a Game 7, and then especially when it goes into overtime, I can't move. I can't breathe. I can't blink. I'm afraid if I move this way or that way that they're going to give up a goal. I mean, just that whole experience, man. What was that whole thing like for you? Streaming the game and then seeing them win it.
When you're doing it live, you just forget that anyone's even watching you. You're so focused on the game, and that was just a real moment. You see Tree throw his beer stein or whatever. Obviously in your joy, you're loving every moment of it, and then you forget it that your friend just watched his team blow a 3-1 lead, which I don't care. I have no sympathy for him. He's a Pittsburgh fan, but it's just one of those things where you're just having fun. I would never think that anyone would even pay attention to me reacting to a Rangers game or anything like that. So the fact that clip is, has been watched by other people, by other fans, even in its small entirety is just a wonderful moment for me because it was so great because once Panarin got it, you saw it happening, you saw the play develop, and then he just sniped it right in there. And it was those are the moments that you live for as a hockey fan. And then we went on to make, a deep run after that. And those are those little things, where it could have gone either way and it just went our way that time. And it was incredible.
Yeah, it's funny because, watching that, that was me during the step-on goal, 9 or 10 years ago, wherever it is.
Yeah.
I lost it, just went nuts. For that winner by Panarin, my wife and I had actually welcomed our first child just a few weeks ago before that. And, my mom was visiting and she's a big Ranger fan. And man, as much as I would like to say that I started screaming and running around, I just collapsed almost. That series was so intense and so nasty between the two fan bases. And I just want it to end. And of course it goes into overtime and, we have to, sweat it out here. But to get that moment, people were on Panarin a little bit for him to get that moment. That was awesome. So a little bit of a different reaction. I do wish I recorded it though. I should have thought of that.
Yeah, the step on goal was even because like I wasn't streaming, I was just I was a fan back then, I wasn't this streamer, or I wasn't, 5PointsVids. I was just this normal. I wouldn't say normal, but I was just your average Ranger fan. And when Stefan scored, I actually ran and slid on my carpet. I had shorts on, and I slid on my carpet like a soccer goal. And I was like physically in pain, but I didn't feel a thing because that, like you said, that was one of the ugliest, most intense series ever. Like, I guess it was a little different between Pittsburgh and us because like, they were up and we came back, and it was very similar in terms of composition of the series. But man, it was so ugly between Caps fans and Rangers because they were talking so much smack, with all series, baby, and Ovi with that one. And then to see him just take his helmet off and just the relief of winning finally, like it was so good. It was such a stress off of our bet. Like it was more like we had to win. Like we had to win that series.
Yes.
And it was also the amount of pressure that was on that 2015 team to get far, and the fact that we got down early and then we ended up still winning. So it was great.
Yeah, 2 years ago, it felt like, nobody took the Rangers seriously at all. Everybody was trying to like invalidate everything they did. And it's only because you have Igor Shesterkin. So man, they just had to win that series against the Penguins. I just, and being down 3-1 and coming back, I mean, that just adds a whole nother layer to it. And what a moment, man. I know they fell short of the cup, but that's up there as far as like my favorite seasons ever. And I imagine probably somewhat similar for you as well, right?
The other thing though is I just kind of felt it coming. Like you could tell that the momentum was on the Rangers side. Like we were holding the puck in their zone. We were we were getting there. We were getting closer. Like you can tell that they were getting weary. Like you could tell that like something was going to happen. And then finally it just broke through and it was such a relief for us to win it. And, we went on and then we won another series after that. Like every series win to me as a Ranger fan is always special. Like you can always replay because it's a war. It's pure war for a 7-game series. And it's sometimes I think about the Stepan goal being even more special than not as special as 2014, the year before, but that was a really special moment. Yeah. I mean, St. Louis against Montreal, like that goal is also one of my favorite of all times. Like that, just all the context around that. That's a wonderful moment.
Do you remember where you were for that? I was actually at my friend's wedding, and a few of us snuck away during the reception to go watch the overtime, and we had a blast when he scored. We were already having fun, but where were you for the Stepan one?
For Stepan or St. Louis?
No, I misspoke there.
St. Louis, I actually missed it. I did not get to see it live. I was somewhere I was at a business dinner, and I got the alert that we had won. And I was like, oh, and I saw that St. Louis had scored. Then I ran back, found the highlight, and like, oh, it was just so beautiful, like the whole context around it, and it was just amazing. That whole run in 2014 was really special too. Yeah. Like it's something that I hope someday that we'll get back and have that feeling, and it'll end with us hoisting the cup because it's been a long time. I was 17 the last time it happened, so. A lot of us Rangers fans, a little bit younger, don't even remember 94. Luckily for me, I actually lived it, but I hope again in our lifetimes that we get to experience that because it really is special when it happens. It really
it's cool, man. It's funny because I was 7, so like I remember it, but it's like so far over my head. I'm just thinking like, oh, they'll just win the championship every year, and man, it's not like that. No matter what team you root for in any sport, the championships are few and far between, and they really are special when they happen. So yeah, I'm with you, man. I hope it happens again, in the somewhat not too distant future here. I mean, give me at least one more cup in my lifetime, and honestly, I might sign up for that. Even if you tell me it's only going to be one more.
It's so insane to think, when you really add up the math, like it's been one cup in 77 years for the Rangers. It's really tough to be a Rangers fan. Like we haven't been spoiled by any means. We're not Blackhawk fans. We haven't seen a bunch of championships in a short time. But I think when it happens, we are going to celebrate as hard as anyone else. It's going to be special. So, and hopefully, I would think that this roster that we have, the window's open. The window's open, especially when you got Igor Shesterkin as your goalie.
I agree with that. So hopefully it's happening, and we might even have to meet up that night if that does happen.
Yeah, we'll have to get what. Yeah, definitely for the parade. We'll have to.
Oh my
we'll
God,
have to meet up. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, listen, man. Thanks as always for doing this. I know you're streaming the NFL game tonight, so I'm gonna let you get out of here. But I did want to ask you one more thing. Obviously, you got your YouTube channel and a bunch of hockey related videos on there, as well as every other sport. One of my personal favorites from yours, and we talked about this video in the past, but it's the 5 worst blowouts in hockey history. Specifically, the one where the one team never got the puck past the red line, and the other coach, the guy who was coaching the team that was winning, is just screaming, kill them, the entire game. So that's one of my personal favorites. Anybody listening, you could start there. But do you have one of your favorites? I mean, whether it's a hockey video or any other sport or a recent video that you've done anywhere, you can point people where, okay, this is a good starting spot for your channel there.
Yeah, if you're a hockey fan, I've done a bunch of list type videos with hockey. I did one on smelling salts, which it's, and then I've critiqued all the hockey arenas as well. That's if you want, there's critiquing all 32 NHL arenas, and I've done a lot of videos recently about stadiums. The Saddle Dome is getting up there in age. And there's some pretty poor hockey arenas that are still left. But yeah, I love making content about hockey, and I love covering all sports. But yeah, if anyone wants to check out that video of the 5 great, there was also a bizarre hocky moments that happened. I think to remember someone threw a chicken out on the ice.
I watched that one today. Yeah.
Live
chicken.
Yeah. I always remember Jim Schoenfeld telling the ref to go eat another donut, which is one of my favorite sound clips of all time. So there's so much rich history in hockey. Oh, and then there's the video that I made about what happens when the Stanley Cup gets lost, stolen, or damaged. Yes. And that one's one of my all-time favorite hockey because it actually is a secret. They secretly replaced the Stanley Cup in 1966. Like it was actually done very clandestine, and just the cup in general has so much history around. Like somebody asked me the other day, is like, what do they do with all the rings? Like, how do they keep adding the names on there? And I had to explain to my son, like, yeah, they take the bottom ring off. I think it's every 20 years or something like that, and they add a new one. So.
Well, you showed amazing in your video too, like how big the actual Stanley Cup would now be if they had. It's like towering. It's had to have been like 10 feet tall, right? So it's
for sure.
So, all right, so you know what? That's an awesome video. I have watched that one. I'll leave a link for that one in the description. And listen, man, we got to do this again. We got to do this more often. This is always a ton of fun. 42 minutes or whatever it is have flown by here, and always a pleasure talking some Ranger hockey with you.
Absolutely. I had a blast, and hopefully we can talk next year during the season, because the one thing I love is like with even living out of market, like with ESPN Plus, or I can watch every Ranger game, and I get to listen to Sam Rosen on the call each time, and it feels like I'm at home. So I got to watch more Ranger hockey last year than I have in my entire life, and I felt very privileged to watch almost all 80 games last year. It was a pleasure watching this team, and I'm looking forward to it again this year.
Yeah, same here. I think we all are. We need some hockey to start, but yeah, man. Again, thank you for joining, and Ranger fans, we will see you guys next time.